Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, I'm really excited to welcome my good friend, Nick Stafford. Nick is the talent acquisition lead at jayg Truck Center and always brings a lot of really great insight to the conversation. In this episode, we'll dive into Nick's background, hear his perspectives on technician recruiting, building relationships with schools, and I'm sure a bunch of things that I didn't even plan. Welcome to the show, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Shay. How are you?
I'm great. And when I say I'm excited, I am very excited because we've wanted to do this for a long time. We've talked about it for a long time. And the fact that we finally get you on, I think is pretty awesome because every single conversation we have, I walk away in a better mood and just always enjoy our interactions and appreciate everything that you're doing out there.
Yeah, well, the same goes for you. Every time I get off the phone, I just think like, wow, he just gets it. Like we have some great synergy. We had so many things that were just flowing, and I'm like, how can I get more involved with WrenchWay? And obviously, we're signing up for one of your services, and which has been great. And now that we get to do this, I'm like, okay, what are we going to talk about? And I feel like an hour is not going to be long enough, so it'll be interesting to see where the conversation goes.
Our first 2 day long podcast. It'll take forever.
I'm sure we'll have tons of people watching and listening. Yeah.
So what do you do at jayg Truck Center?
Yeah, so I'm the lead recruiter here. I've been here since just over 5 years now, and I started out as the talent acquisition specialist, full life cycle recruiter. So I do everything from posting the jobs and do phone interviews and scheduling interviews with my managers and offer letters, onboarding, hiring people, everything for 9 locations now in Central Illinois and Chicago. And I go out to schools to recruit talent. So I'll go to 8 different states to recruit diesel techs, body shop techs, even corporate personnel, and sometimes leadership and business development trainees for our training program. So it's a lot of fun. I'm on the road a lot in the fall and the spring, and not so much in the winter time and the summer. But I do everything from career fairs and presentations. I'll do some graduations. I've spoken to several schools for graduations and mock interviews, panels. I just love doing it. I love helping people and just helping the students navigate the crazy job search because it is very unique and it's always changing and evolving. So.
What is your secret to keeping your enthusiasm during all of these career fairs and all of these trade shows? I think a lot of times I'm guilty of this. I love talking to people, but at times we'll get kind of burnt out from that, right? And I'm always curious as to how, with your personality and how you kind of bring that energy to whatever event it is that you're going to. It's always positive. It's always fun. And I kind of stink at that at times, right? Where at times it can be a drag after you've done, it feels like 10 trade shows straight or something like that. But you're just, it feels like you're always on your game. So I need to know what the secret sauce is there.
I don't know if there's really a secret sauce. I love having fun. I'm kind of a kid at heart, to be honest. I love goofing around. I love being silly. I'll be serious when I need to be. I can talk to vice presidents and CFOs and janitors and students and anybody really. I feel like I can connect with people and relate to people, but it's just having a passion for people, like wanting to serve people in all different areas. I'm a people pleaser by fault, and obviously that's a good thing, but it also can be a bad thing, right? But I just go out there and I want to help people. I want to ask questions. Like I love asking questions. Before I came over into this industry, my first job was I got an interview with my former client in the retirement plan industry space that I was in. And she's like, "Do you like asking questions? You're going to be asking a lot of questions." And I'm like, "I love asking questions. I love helping people. I connect with people. I love, finding them deals and jobs and connecting them with, other opportunities. And it's just, I'm a connector. I can relate. I ask questions. And yeah, sometimes at the end of a long day, there's some career fairs and events that are 5, 6 hours long. And at the end of those, I'm like, I'm not calling anybody when I leave here. I'm just driving home and they're hopping on a plane. That's it. Like I'm done peopling. So it's just, I don't know. I like to laugh and smile and have fun. I think that's the core of it, is just having fun and wanting to help people. You really have to love people to be in this field.
Well, and I think you look at it through such a cool lens in that you can have fun and authentic fun. It's not forced. It's not corny. It's not, and when it comes to developing those relationships, which I do want to talk about at some point during the conversation, because you are phenomenal at maintaining relationships and just to check in, over the years, I think you've done that with me several times and I absolutely love it. I think it's such a key to building a relationship. But then when you approach it with such a genuine curiosity and just the ability to have fun with it, I think that one, it makes your life easier because it is fun then when you're going into those schools. And two, I think younger people in general, when they see an adult having fun in their job and really kind of have that visibility to the fact that you can have fun at your job and
Yep.
still be productive and still, meet all the requirements that you need to, it might give them maybe a little bit of a different take on the professional world as a whole,
Yeah, and I think if you're in a job or career and you're not having fun, what are you doing? Why
right?
are you there? Like, yeah, I have to come in here and I have to do my job and be professional and talk to people, and I get that. That's not a problem, but why wouldn't you want to have fun? I mean, you're here a third of your life. Like you gotta have fun. And so when you go out there and like people see me, I'm sure if I there's a video camera on me at different events, they're gonna be like, that guy's a little crazy. He's a little different. Yeah, I am. And you have to be. I talk to students about, okay, like you're gonna be applying for jobs, you're talking to recruiters and hiring managers, and what are you doing to stick out? There's other students here. You've got peers in this school. You've got other schools. You've got the whole country. Like you don't know who's applying for these jobs. So what are you doing to stick out? And then about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I started asking myself, what am I doing to stick out? Like how am I being different? And you have to be different, not in a bad way, but just different so that a student or candidate will think of you and think of your company and your interactions and be like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that guy. I remember talking to him. Because you have to be memorable to people. And some of the ways that I do it are not just asking questions, but like serving them in a way that's going to help them long term for their career. I don't hire, obviously, everybody I talk to. It's just not feasible. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic. So what I can do, whatever I can do to serve them at the time and help them navigate this journey, whether they come work for me, my competitor, they go into a different industry. Again, serving people and helping people is what I like to do. And that may never pay me dividends. The ripple effect of those efforts, I don't know how long they'll go, if they'll help their friends and other people. I don't know if a competitor next to me will see or hear me talking to a student and maybe they'll change their ways of recruiting, because I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to evolve and get better. And I always think to myself, like, what can I do to get better? And I have to ask that question. I have to take that constructive criticism and feedback, because if you say you think you're the best, you're going to get passed real fast. So I'm never going to say I'm the best. I'm always trying to get better, always trying to do the little things, because the little things are important to these students.
I think what you just said there is so key, and a lot from our industry could learn from that, in that if that person doesn't come work for you, it doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. It just means that you weren't the right fit for them. And I think so many in our industry will discount somebody if they don't come to work for us, and maybe begrudge them or have kind of angry feelings toward that individual. And as a young person, you have to remember what it was like coming through a school and talking to recruiters or shops as a whole. I remember coming out of tech school and how overwhelming that process was. And that was before we were really, really high in demand as far as technicians go. And I can only imagine now these kids having to navigate that, and maybe going to a career fair at their school and talking to all of these people that really, really want them to come work for their companies. and being able to understand, who's telling the truth, and maybe not necessarily who's telling the truth, but maybe who's embellishing a little bit more than the other recruiter, or who is actually painting an accurate picture of what it's like to work at this place. And I think a lot of times what happens from that student standpoint is that's kind of why they end up centering on money, right? You talked about figuring out why you're different and unique as a shop, and that was really a shift in our industry within the last decade. I feel like where in the past that candidate was always trying to stand out, that student was always trying to stand out so that they could get the best opportunity. Well, now they have all of these shops coming after them, and it is a little bit of just a shift as a whole. And I think at times it can be overwhelming, and that's why maybe they only look at money versus some of the other stuff that would make them really, really happy.
Yeah, the number of offers that some of these students are getting is wild. I mean, I've got
Yeah.
stories of talking to students, and we do on the spot offers at JX at our recruiting events. And I've given them offers, piece of paper, handwritten, hey, here's an offer, fill in the template. And they're like, oh, thanks. This is great. This is, my fifth or sixth offer. It's like, good for you. Yeah, we hired somebody out of a tech school, one of the top technical schools in the country. And he said that every company that came in to do a recruiting presentation, he interviewed with them. He signed up for an interview. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, because you can always improve your interview skills, me included. And he's like, yeah, you're my number two company. Out of the 12 offers I've received, you're my number two company. And eventually, number one just fell through. They didn't get back to him and misled him. And he's like, you still got an opening for me? I said, yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's overwhelmed. There's option overload with, and all the companies come in and they sell their benefits, their company, and their opportunities, and that's great. But then the students are like, it's all feeling like it's the same kind of company. It's just all blending together. And so that's where you have to stand out and sell the unique opportunities at your company versus what's different than everybody else. But to the beginning part of your question or statement, I don't get when a hiring manager or person will get mad at a student or a candidate for not coming to work for them. Like that just doesn't make sense to me. You're
I
not going to
agree.
hire everybody you talk to. There's so many options out there. Like the market's right now, it's a little wanky, but it'll change, it'll correct like it always does. And these technicians are in such high demand. They're in such high demand right now. They can, if they're good, they can write their own ticket. They can sell themselves and interviews, just do pretty good in an interview. They're going to get a lot of offers. Why are they going to come work for you? This is just, don't force it. Don't be mad. And then that ruins your brand if you're like getting mad at them. If you show that, they're going to tell all their friends, well, this company, this guy at this company, he's been a jerk. He was really upset I didn't come work for him. And that's going to spread like wildfire.
Yes.
So I don't know. You just have to be good with people and connect with people to understand these little things. But this is not rocket science. Recruiting and to me, developing relationships, I guess it's harder for some people, but it's just caring, just helping and caring.
Yeah, I think being a good person is probably one of the higher on the list priorities for a recruiter. just
Yep.
be a good person and
Uh-huh.
build relationships, because you never know, maybe that person goes to that number one option, right? It's similar to the scenario that you were talking about where the number one option fell through, and guess what, person comes back and because you treated them well, ended up getting into your organization. And I think if you focus on that relationship building, and I think a lot of times in tech schools, especially now, they're sponsored going through the tech school. A lot of the shops are paying for their tech school, so they're tied to that brand for for whatever amount of time. But maybe if you're building that relationship, it's not hard to shoot a text to somebody. It's not hard to give somebody a random call and just check in on them, and not even from a recruiting sense, but if you've built a good relationship with an individual, you do actually care about how they're doing at work, and you do care that they're progressing and doing the things that are really living up to their potential. And I think you had talked earlier about, I don't know if that will pay off. I genuinely think that pays off in a big way down the road, because you're right. The reputation has that ripple effect. And hey, you know what? I talked to that Nick at JX, and he's a good dude. I really liked him. And it might not be that tangible thing that you can point to and say, okay, we've got 50 technicians because of that. But I think just being a good person and being relatable and easy to talk to, and having the ability to grow a relationship definitely doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't. And business, personal, it's all about relationships. It's who you know and who knows you. You know, people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And you're right. It's not hard to send a quick text or an email or a phone call and just to follow up. Hey, how you doing? What's new? I mean, I've traveled a lot in the last 18 years um, in my life. And when I'm on the road, I had plenty of time to give friends and coworkers, candidates a call and just check in, especially the candidates that I know they're really solid, that I'd love to definitely develop that relationship and keep that relationship going to see if in a year or two or five they come back. And I've had that happen a couple times. And it's just, I don't know if it's luck or because I took the time and effort to follow up with them. But in the schools now, you just, pre-COVID, it's changed so much since COVID. Pre-COVID, some companies would go in and they just thought that it was easy, just like I said, to put their table up, their banners, and pass some stuff out, talk to people, and that was that. Now there are more companies going in. I refer to it like this, like the analogy is you got a pond, and the companies, the employers are the fishermen, and trying to fish out the talent in the pond. Well, I think the pool, the pond has shrunk a little bit, and they're in more high demand, and more fishermen are fishing in the pond, and the bait is getting a lot bigger and a lot more lucrative. So companies have figured out since COVID, we need to do more, not only offer better pay and benefits and training and all the other things, the hooks to get the students, the candidates in to work for them, but they need to be in the school a lot more. That's one of the secrets. I found the more I was in a school, Jay, whether it was presentations, career fairs, mock interviews, speaking on Saturday, events for technical schools, for family events to get them in and just hear from an employer partner. The more they see you, those touch points. Hey, I saw you at my high school career fair. Hey, I saw you at, the Saturday event with my family. Hey, you were here for my first day. You've done presentations. I've seen you at 2 career fairs right now. I've seen you 6 times. I've interviewed you 3 times. And it's that relationship. They gravitate more towards a solid company that has good pay and overall comp package and benefits, and that was someone that they've developed that relationship with. This is, yes, they're good, they're technical. Yes, they want the pay, and they don't want crazy pay. Some of them do, but they want a good company that has good values and cultures that treat them well. They're taken care of, and that they have that relationship with. And that's the key part. So the less time I'm in schools, I found the less people I hire. The more that I go to schools, the more I see them, the more they see me, the more students I hire from those schools.
Just like anything, the work that you put in will pay off. And I think the ability you talk about, the ability to relationship build because of visibility, and I think that is so true. And even with the schools themselves, right, being able to have really good relationships with the instructors, they know they can rely on you to be there for them. And honestly, I remember I was very involved with the diesel programs, still am to some degree, not nearly as much as I used to be, but at Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin. And, 20 years ago, we were begging people to come to the advisory committee meetings, right? Like I was begging competitors to come to the advisory committee meetings because we knew we needed a stronger core to support. And now they moved to a bigger room. There's all kinds of advisory committee members there. And it's cool to see, but you're right. The competition level has really increased. Now, I think when you approach it with the mindset that we as an industry need to put our arms around this program and grow this program so that there are enough people for everybody, then we don't have to have maybe necessarily those fights for that one technician, which I don't think will ever go away. But I think my key point of what I'm trying to make there is we need to shift our focus from that one individual student to the program itself, because when you have a strong program, you're just going to have stronger students coming out of that program. You're going to have a program that has that industry support that, if they don't have it, can easily start to slide away, right? You have one key teacher retire, and then all of a sudden the program goes stagnant. And I talk to teachers, as do you, a lot, and when they have kind of that lack of support, it's heartbreaking when you talk to that instructor, because then they don't know if the fight's worth it when they're talking to administration or when they're talking
Oh,
to their dean, right? And I think, I just talked to one last week, and they told me that they don't think it's worth the fight anymore. They don't want to. They don't want to do it on their own. They need the help. And for me, I just sit back and I'm like, my goodness, how did we get to this point to where we're not supporting these
yeah.
schools?
It's on the industry. Like obviously the schools have their programs and they budgeted so much money for the programs and instructors and equipment and stuff like that. And I get that. And that's obviously critical. But we are also a key partner. We need to be a key partner in recruiting students, getting students interested in the transportation industry, whatever industry they're in, to get them excited about it and tell them about career opportunities, to tell them about pay, tell them about all the things you get to work on, all the cool equipment and trucks and earth moving equipment or whatever. And if we don't do that as industry, like we're failing the industry. And talking about all of the employer partners, our competitors, everybody, in the industry working together, we have to, yes, we're in competition for the same talent, but we're all in this together. Rising tide lifts all ships, and we need to, because if we don't help this, it's going to fail. And I think there's been a change, a turn since COVID in the high schools, and maybe the smaller community colleges, and technical schools, and the importance and the value and the need for technicians and tradespeople. But like you said, there's now more and more people going to the PAC meetings and more companies willing to go to various events to talk to students because they know the value. It's a infomercial, it's commercial. You're selling the students, if you're talking to them at whatever event about your company, whether it's 10 students or 500 students. And so if we don't, shame on us. Like I go to as many events as I can. Doesn't matter. Like if I can make it, I will go. Nights, weekends, I'm there because I'm selling the company and branding JX and myself. And again, the more times I'm there, the more success I have. So
Absolutely. Did you know that WrenchWay offers free solutions to help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors connect with local shops and dealerships? Nearly 700 schools across the country have used WrenchWay to successfully get resources and support for their classrooms, such as tool and equipment donations, advisory committee members, shop tours and guest speakers, and much, much more. It's an easy way to bring education and industry together to promote and improve careers in automotive and diesel. There's no obligation, hidden costs, or fees. WrenchWay will always be free for instructors to use. Visit wrenchway.com and click on the For Schools link under Solutions to learn more and sign up. Direct link is in the show notes. Now, as a recruiter, you obviously wear that badge on your shirt with a lot of pride. How do you make sure that all of the pride and everything that you are talking to a student about is reflected when they first start, right? So when they come into the company, and making sure that that experience isn't just with you, but with the company as a whole, and that when you're sending them to work for a service manager, that you're confident that service manager is going to take care of them, or their team is going to take care of them. I know we talked earlier about just kind of that need to have fun, and I think it's just different. Different personalities mesh differently with different shops, right? And I think in a lot of cases, if you are that fun loving person, but you get into that shop that is maybe a little bit more serious, or vice versa, maybe you're more of that analytical, very serious person when the clock strikes 7 or 8, whenever they start, that it's all business all the time, and trying to kind of make sure that when they come in your doors as a part of the team, that everything that they kind of learned while they were talking to you is now translated into just a successful partnership with that individual, right? Making sure that they come in, that you're pushing them to their potential while also allowing them to grow and making sure that they're a fit for where they're at. I know that's a loaded question, but just trying to
Yeah.
understand that cycle from the time you get them into when you put them in the shop and how you make that a smooth transition.
It's a really great question, and that can be difficult at times. There's a couple of pieces to this equation. One of them is got to ask questions to know the personality and of the candidate, the student, and what they're looking for and what's important to them, what they need. Are you going to be more successful, or do you like a bigger shop or a smaller shop? Do you like to be in the country or metro? And the more questions I can ask them to figure out what's important to them, their needs and their wants and their likes, the better off that I'm going to be. So I can take that information. And then I also have to know all my dealerships to the best of my ability, what they're like, size, number of bays, the culture to the best of my ability, the managers, their management style, their personality. Um, Everything about those two things are really critical. But the most critical piece of this is being open, honest, and transparent about everything. I'm not going to sit here and sell them and just be like a used car salesperson and be like, no offense to any used car salespeople out there, but I'm not going to say we're the best at this and we're greatest at this and you're going to love it here and there's going to be no issues. And that's not realistic whatsoever. So I just have to paint the picture and say, okay, well, this is what the shop is like. Here's what this manager is like, and then let them decide. Like, yeah, I think that's something that's I'd like to go work at that shop. But before they sign the paperwork, before they get in the shop, come work for us, I always recommend, if possible, to go to the dealership itself, meet the manager, meet the service advisors, meet the team, meet whoever they can meet. And the managers love that too because they like talking about their shop. They love their shop, they love their team, they love all the things that they do. And so that's a win-win. So if I can get them in there, then it's like stepping foot. Here's the reality of it. It's not just a video or pictures or what the recruiter, selling me on. And a lot of times they walk in and they're like, yeah, this looks great. And sometimes they walk in like, this is not what I expected or not what I liked. And then it's a no-go. So, but a lot of times it does work. So the more involved you get them, the more real it is, the better. But again, at the end of the day, it's always open, honest, transparent information. Not many students, not many candidates ask about negative things, which I guess that's great. But sometimes I'd like them to ask the tough questions too, because not every company's perfect. It's not all peaches and sunshine, but I'll let them know, like, here's things that you could ask about. And I look at questions like, if you have a puzzle, you turn the puzzle over, the pieces over, and you have the cardboard side, every question you ask, you turn over a piece of the puzzle. So more questions you ask, the clearer picture you see of the opportunity that we have to offer.
What a amazing visual there. I love that analogy, and I think that really plays well. And that's great advice to those technicians that are listening out there, right? When you go in, and we talk a lot about that, about being prepared when you go in for an interview, or when you're maybe, that student out there at a career fair, be able to prepare questions, because I think even when you're nervous, then you'll be able to kind of go back to your questions. And I think, from my standpoint, anytime I've interviewed somebody and they come with questions, and maybe questions that are tough for me as an interviewer, I am always walking away impressed, right? Like if they come
Yeah.
prepared, every time they come with prepared questions, I'm like, yeah, I'm probably hiring that person. it has such a better feeling, right? Like, because there's so
hmm
many that, I don't have any questions. I'm like, you don't have any questions
Oh,
about your future,
no,
right? Like,
no.
I
Oh
want you
my
to come with some
cringe.
questions, right?
How long do we have to talk on this subject? Because I could talk for a long time. This is something that anymore I found that our managers are really impressed with little things that students or candidates do. in the interview process. And one of them is asking questions. If a manager or recruiter says, okay, do you have any questions for me? No, I think you answered them all for me. Well, really? I did, huh? Well, you're here in the dealership. Did you ask to tour the shop? If we haven't given them a tour yet, have you asked about your manager? Have you asked about the culture, work-life balance, benefits, training? Anything like I put together a 4-page document called "Questions Asked in an Interview," and I hand it out at every event I go to, and students love it. And I've had one student come up to me a year later to an HR panel that I was attending, and he showed me the original document I had, which has evolved a lot since then. He's like, I use this all the time. I tell him to go through it and highlight or underline or asterisk their favorite 5, 10, 15, 20 questions before their first interview and ask every employer the same questions, every recruiter the same questions, because you can compare apples to apples. You're going to find out who's BSing you real quick. But no, preparation is something that we don't see as much anymore, Jay. And I don't get it because it doesn't take much. You literally could spend 5 minutes on a company's website, go to their homepage, their about us, press releases, news, careers, updates, whatever, and just write down a couple of notes, 3, 4, 5 bullet points that might be interesting to bring up in conversation that might impress the person you're talking to. You got to impress people at the other company, and that's a simple way to do it. And asking questions, there's tons of questions you could ask. And I think if they do a little bit of preparation, it's going to help them in the long run, especially if nobody else, their competition is doing it. It's going to set them apart real fast.
Yeah, and it's interesting when we built WrenchWay, it wasn't for this purpose, but it's interesting that it's kind of taken on a piece of this, that we now have a bunch of instructors that they'll put up different WrenchWay pages and ask their students to be able to tell the differences between them. And I think it's such a powerful thing, because then you're getting that student to think a little bit differently about the fact that there are different shops, that there are different managers, that there are different people in those shops, and you need to find the right fit for you. And you have the right to ask questions, especially right now, because you are so high in demand, that if you come prepared and you ask questions, I think you're doing it as much out of trying to find the right fit for yourself as you are trying to impress an employer, right? And I think maybe when you and I were coming up, if we prepared questions, it was to try and impress the employer that we were doing that. But right now, it's funny because we always talk about, and you'll hear really good technicians say this, like, I don't need a resume. They're going to come to me. They're going to find me. And they're right. Like most times that they're going to have to fill out the general application, but for the most part, they probably have a reputation that preceded them and they don't need the resume as much anymore. And I've had this discussion with a lot of people, because there's still a lot that put a lot of value in a good resume, regardless of how talented the person is. But then there are a lot of technicians that are like, I'm not doing that. Well, I think you do yourself a disservice, right? Because even if you're the most talented technician in the world, you have to have some type of portfolio. And I think a lot of times that resume is that portfolio. And, kind of going back to asking questions, a lot of times maybe that student doesn't think they need to do that, because they do have a bunch of opportunities and they do have a bunch of people that are chasing after them. But if they take a step back and say, okay, I'm not doing this to impress the employer. I'm doing this because I truly want to get an understanding of what it is that I'm signing up for. I think that changes the conversation a lot.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you got to play the game. You got to go through the process. You got to apply resume. A lot of people, like you said, are looking for a resume, whether it's an Indeed resume or template or whatever. And I don't think the resume is the most important piece. It shouldn't be, at
Mm-mm.
least. It should be something just to get you in the door. Just it's a piece of paper, right? To say, here's what I've done. And then obviously the interview is a lot more important. And maybe even assessments are more important. But yeah, it's, these students, the technicians are in such high demand. And I think we're noticing the effects of COVID right now, and also their demand being so high that I feel like they don't have to put in as much effort, because a lot of things have been handed to them or done for them, or they weren't required to do things. Um, on top of the fact that they're in high school or college and they don't know, and that's fine. But I think with students, especially at certain schools where they're in really high demand and they're getting employers to come in every couple days to recruit and do interviews, and some employers are cooking steaks for students, like 625 steaks for students, literally ribeye steaks, and instructors and staff. They I don't know if they flew or
Where
drove in.
where is this at? Because I think I might have to show up for that one.
One of the top technical schools in the West. I don't know if I'm allowed to say school names or not, but
I think you can. I'm guessing it's a fair assumption that it's Wyotech.
it is Wildtech. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
they have multiple companies now coming in to do cookouts, and they take kids at career fairs out to dinners at steakhouses. And there's an ag implement that actually has flown. I think they do it every career fair now. They fly in students. They take their private jet and fly them to one of their facilities in North or South Dakota, and then fly them back. I'm losing out on a candidate because they got flown on a private jet or got cooked a steak. And like, great for them, great for the students, but when you have all these companies coming in, like, you're in high demand, like, we want you. They're like, well, what do I need to do? Do I need to do anything at all? Like, doing a resume and asking questions? And like, you want me? You're offering jobs to me. Like, obviously, like, these are the goods you want. So why do you want me to do anything extra? It's a really interesting time to be a technician right now, student or experienced, and great for them. They deserve it. It's their time. It's a long time coming.
We do have to give Cindy Barlow at Wyotech a shout out. I always try to give Cindy a shout out because I think the work that she does is phenomenal. I think what Jim has done with Wyotech out there has been amazing. So, a great school. I know you spend a lot of time out there, and it's always fun to go out there. I actually need to get back out there at some point here in the near future. But just great people, a great school, and I just always enjoy my conversations with Cindy. So I think she's taken it to the next level for sure.
I cannot say enough great things about Cindy and Jim and Greg and Jessica and all the people at WildTech that I have relationships with. They take everything to the next level. It's a different experience going out to WildTech in a good way. I will almost want to say it's a magical experience going out there. Like, they figuratively roll out the red carpet for you, whether you're doing presentations or career fair. And I absolutely love it. I
Yeah.
love them, love it, and yeah.
You can definitely tell there's been a lot put into that over the years. But I think going back to your point on the students being flown on private jets, the demand out there is a reflection of all of the success that they've had and all the great things that they've done. But I also think, like, when you look at the grand scheme of all the tech schools, and you have the WyoTechs and UTIs, which we need them putting the amount of students that they do out, but there's still a huge need for the local community colleges too. There's still a
Yes.
need for them to be out there training, and we need to be supporting those guys too, right?
Yeah, we have to support everybody because every student, every person is not going to be interested in one school, one technical school or community college, right? And so you have to spread your time and effort and resources to the schools, even the ones that are just getting the program started. There's a community college here in Central Illinois. I've got a relationship with their program director. He was at a previous school and wanted a new challenge, so they needed someone to open up their diesel program, and so we went and did that. And we just started. The first class was last year. They're now into their second year. They're doing a great job. It's a small program like we have in Central Illinois. We've got some of the best local community colleges, diesel community programs or diesel programs in the state of Illinois, and arguably the Midwest, in Central Illinois. And but still, there's not enough. Their facilities are only so big. They only have a couple of instructors typically. They can only have so many students, and they're all pretty much looking to grow, and it's hard because it costs money to open up more facilities and get more equipment and tools and hire those instructors and teachers and professors. So you have to help those out too. The bigger schools, yes, we support them, we help them out as much as we can, but you also have to help out the little guys, if you will, to get them up and going, because it's not a one size fits all. a student may walk into a Lincoln Tech or a Wild Tech or UTI and think this is just it's too big for me. I want to go somewhere local. I want to stay at home, and that's great too. So yeah, you do have to support them because we hire a lot of them locally as well. So
It, I think when we talk about support, I go back to maybe an example that I had not too long ago, probably a semester or two ago at our local advisory committee meeting. And one of the things I kind of heard in my conversations with the instructors prior to the actual meeting was that, hey, we're getting tight on space. We are running out of space. And so, from my perspective, I hear that as we have limitations on how big we can grow this program, which I don't like to hear. So, in the advisory committee meeting, the dean happened to be sitting in there, and so I just raised my hand and said, "What are your future plans for expansion? We're busting at the seams here. We probably need new facilities." And I knew in the back of my mind, I know the instructors are wanting new facilities kind of off of the main campus. And I said, that's not like an overnight thing, especially at the community college level, the tech school level. So how do we start this conversation so that things start going in motion? At least it's on the radar, because, if we are sitting here having this conversation again in 5 years, we haven't moved the ball forward, right? And so being able to ask maybe some of those tough questions in an advisory committee meeting, I think are really important, especially when the key people are in the room. It's not the instructor going into that conversation asking, they're not the one trying to get the ball rolling. Industry can do a lot of favors to these programs by just being able to start a conversation, so that opens up the dialogue between that dean and the instructors, or whoever the key players are in whatever school. But at least kind of put it out there so that maybe that starts to make some progress.
yeah, that's happened at one of the advisory councils I'm on. It's actually for automotive school here in Illinois, the top one in the state. That I co-chair the advisory of the pack, and they had one of their deans in about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and they had shown interest or expressed interest in growing. But that's a lot because industry is coming in, not on the automotive side and the diesel side, but also the material handling side. Like Amazon is blowing up in their city, and they can't get enough students in to help with the demand. And it's getting pretty bad, like bad in a good way, right? The demand
Right.
is just skyrocketing. And they had plans. They talked to some engineers and different companies and their deans, and I think they had a change. The problem was that one of the deans left, which happens at schools, and then they had to develop the relationship with a new one, ask the questions, started. I just think it's unfortunately not gone anywhere. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these schools could definitely expand. But yeah, the industry, we have to be asking those questions, and shame on us if we're not. But we have to find out from the schools and instructors, how's your program doing? Do you have, are you turning 50, 100 students away every fall because you don't have the space and the room? Or are you doing okay? Or are you still, you could take a couple more in? So we have to have the conversations first with the instructors and then see like, well, do you need equipment? We donate engines and transmissions more to community colleges than we do technical schools, or large technical schools, because they don't have a lot of the money to get some of these
Right.
engines and transmissions. So yeah, you just have to ask the questions, and shame on us if we're not asking those questions.
I think the key is having that relationship with the instructors ahead of time so that you actually understand what it is that they're needing and what they're struggling with, and maybe don't aren't in the position to be able to ask for some of the stuff that we are. And so if you have that relationship, and I think any of you that are listening to this, you understand if you're at that level of relationship with the instructors at your local school. If you're not, then you have work to do, right? But if you are to the point to where you could go have some beers with the instructor or go to lunch with them on a consistent basis, there's so many cues as to knowing where you stand with the instructors, and if they trust you enough to be able to tell you some of the stuff that they truly need, that helps them to be able to have, when you're in that type of meeting, to be able to push the ball forward on something. And I think that's that's vital for our industry, right? The more advocates they have, the more they're fighting for funding. And we haven't even talked about high
Yeah.
schools yet, because I do want to talk about that side. That the tech schools in a lot of ways are fairly well taken care of budgetarily. There's some that really struggle, but they're not nearly as many as the high schools. Now, how often are you in high schools, or like, give me an idea of like how many high schools you have relationships with?
So right now, my current role, being a full lifecycle recruiter, going out to recruit diesel
Not as much.
technicians, and not as much. We also have a career placement specialist for JX. We hired on August of 2023. His name is Paul Hathaway. He came from UTI and worked at Lincoln Tech before that as well. Phenomenal human being, great at what he does, great at connecting with people and students. He's been in recruiting and being a regional admissions director for reps at UTI and Lincoln Tech for over 20 years. He gets it, and he's our high school recruiter. So he does that. But prior to this, when I was at my previous employer, I was in high schools quite a bit actually. I don't know the exact number of relationships I had there, but it was easily about 20 or 25. And yeah, I mean, you got to start small. You got to start even at the junior high level. More companies that I talk to, and there's not a ton, but they're going to junior highs to recruit and just show them a truck, show them whatever their equipment is, tools, simulators. It's just nuts. But yeah, you're right when it comes to relationships with the instructors. For me, it's always been about what can I do to serve your students, to help them not just talk about a company, because everybody wants to come in and tell you about their company, how great they are, and I do the same thing. But I don't do a hard sell. I don't come in and say, this is the best company, you need to come work here, all the other companies are horrible, why would you go work for them? That's a huge turnoff. No one's going to come work for you if you approach it like that. The hard sell does not work anymore. And it's really about, hey, here's what we do. Here's what we offer. Here's pay, here's benefits, here's our opportunities. Are you interested? Let me know. And it's the more that I show that I care about them, and I give handouts that, like, I'll go and I'll give the JAGs handouts, right? But I also give them the questions to ask in an interview and talk about that like I did earlier. I give them things to consider at work, 14 things to consider at work that are kind of like information that's not going to be published a lot, but it's like, your boss is going to be really important. They're going to make or break your success and happiness and your career advancement opportunities. That's kind of one of the things in that. And I also now have a 3.5-page document called negotiations. There's 4 or 5 different tips on things to say or not to say to negotiate more money when you get an offer. So what am I doing? I'm helping them, I'm serving them and helping them through this job search and navigate finding a job and getting more money. So they're not just thinking this guy's not just all about his company, which obviously I'm there to recruit. And now the instructors see that, and I edify the instructors, I edify the program that they're in, and I edify how great the instructors are and all the help that they're providing or doing for the students. And then I edify the school and career services. And when I go in there and do those things, and the instructors see that I'm not just like saying, oh, we're great, here's how much money you can make, that I'm serving the kids, the students, they want me back. They want me to come, and I'm like, I'll do mock interviews, I'll do panels, I'll do whatever you need. We can do lots of different things. And they're like, you're actually going to spend time here and do these things and not just sell your company and how great it is? Yeah, I am. Because again, a rising tide lifts all ships. Whether they go work for our competitor or wherever, like, I may see them again. Like, and this industry needs good talent. And I think that there's an ASE stat or fact or number out there that says like 40% of technicians leave after 2 years, leave the industry after 2 years. That is a huge number, and that number needs to drop significantly.
It
Or we're going
does.
to be in a world of hurt in 3 to 5 years when all these technicians are retiring.
Yeah, I think we've felt that. And I know it's always, I think so much of it is getting the right students into the industry. And that's why I was kind of asking about the high school side, just because there's so much, we're not even just fighting to get people into our tech school programs in our industry. We're not just fighting each other. We're fighting the other trades. We're fighting, we're battling against all these other people that, there's some pretty attractive offerings out there. And, if you have a student that's good with their hands, but might be looking at going to be an electrician over being a diesel tech, or looking at being a plumber over being an automotive tech, you have to be able to understand from an industry standpoint as to why we're better than those, or why we might be a better fit for that student. And I, as you know, all of these other industries struggle to find people. This battle isn't going to go away. Like we as an industry need to know why we're different.
Yeah, we have to know why. We have to sell the why we're different and why we're better. Um, but not that other industries are bad by any means. And sometimes they're like, "Oh, your industry's great, but I want to go be a plumber. I want to go be an electrician. I want to go lay tile." And when I talk about our competition, it's not. I think some people think like, "Oh, we have our direct competitors, and yeah, we've got those." But like you said, we've got HVAC, plumbing, electricians. We've got military. We've got unions. We've got, you want to go into the oil field, like not just diesel and automotive construction, heavy equipment, power generators. We have all these other competitors that they go into, being a cop, right? And so it's like we have so many competitors out there, and we need to do even more than we can possibly. Like I try and stretch my limitations as much as I can, which I know my wife doesn't like or appreciate that. Sorry, babe. But because if I just sit back and just go through the motions in this day and age, the motions don't cut it. So yeah, the competition is huge, and that's why I think like more and more companies are putting in those efforts, those resources, hiring more recruiters, spending more money, cooking more steaks, getting more private jets, because they realize, yeah, it's going to take a lot of money. It takes a lot of money to recruit, to attract and retain people nowadays.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about your approach in how you got into all of these schools, right? Because I feel like different schools have different entry points. And I know in just talking to a lot of our own WrenchWay clients that at times they're like, I would love to help the school out, but I don't know who to talk to. I don't know the people there. Uh, have you ever had that scenario where you weren't quite sure which path to take to get into a school, or did you always have kind of a clear idea of where you're going?
It's a good question. So a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. So when I initially broke in this industry almost 9 years ago, I replaced the technical recruiter at that company who went into sales, and he had relationships at a lot of schools. Took me to the UTIs, the WOW Techs, the Lincoln Techs, the local community colleges, four-year schools too, and introduced me to the instructors and teachers and professors at those schools. So that was kind of just almost plug and play. And the relationship was there. It's now me versus him. And we go from there. Here's the contact information. Here's a spreadsheet. Good luck. Have fun. So that was easy. There's one example, and I love using this because it's really the relationship with Jeff and I has blossomed. So one of the local schools in Central Illinois that actually their diesel program is the best, not only in the state of Illinois, but arguably the Midwest, even the country. It's Illinois Central College in East Peoria. And the former program director there, Jeff Gardner, we couldn't get in. My predecessor couldn't get into the school to talk to their diesel students, and he didn't know why. And so I just said, I'll email Jeff and Mike, his partner, and said, hey, just interested if I come in and present. Didn't hear anything. Send another one. Hey, didn't know if you now's a good time to come in. Didn't hear anything. I'm like, well, I got to try a different approach. So I'm like, what can I offer? Being in sales, because recruiters are salespeople. What can I offer? That value add, right? That buzzword, um, to their program, to their students. So I talked about I can come in and I can do this. Have you ever done mock interviews? I played dumb. I'd never been in. Do you guys do mock interviews? Do you have career fairs? And once I did that, then they responded and said, well, they have a tool vendor day, and apparently employers were invited to that, but I didn't know anything about that. So I sent another email. And I think at this time, Jeff was just like, whatever, just bring him in. So I came in and I'm like, I got in. I need to do everything. I need to dump everything on them that I can. So I brought spreadsheets. I created a spreadsheet of like five, Excel spreadsheet of five different companies at the top that they could put in, and then a list of like 20 to 25 different benefits on the left side. And they could, scale or rate it, 1 to 5 or A, B, C, D. I forget what I did. And I passed it out. I talked about that. And I talked about this page on resumes and how to craft a good resume. and interviews and how to prepare for interviews. And there's a couple of documents I gave. When I was done, Jeff was like, this, "You did great. Like, when can you come in again?" And I'm like, "I did it. I got in." And I was so excited. And since then, and then they had a high school showcase a year or so later, and it was massively successful. They had two keynote speakers. One was like the vice president of the district of Midwest for Bayer, Monsanto Bayer, and I was the one for Diesel. And I'm like, I'm the keynote speaker at this big event. Like that, I'm still blown away that he asked me to do that. He didn't even know me, and all these other companies that he had relationships with, he asked me to come in. And since then, Jeff and I have had an incredible relationship. He is an amazing. I mean, he is the GOAT, right? But yeah, I just think you have to try different approaches and be a little unique and creative, but you also have to tell them, like, why do you want to give up class time? Why should you give up class time? Precious class time with your students to have an employer that you don't know. Because some employers, some people that come in, whether it be a manager, recruiter, or whoever, it's just, some of them just aren't really the best or great at educating and inspiring and keeping people's attention. And that's okay. Not everybody has that kind of gift, but I do pretty good. I do okay,
I
and
think you do.
I can keep people's attention, and they like that. And again, it wasn't me beating the drum like, "Come work for us." It was, these things will help you. They talking to their freshmen, it helped them. So and I've talked with Jeff and been going to his new school now at Lincoln Land Community College in Springfield, Illinois, and it's been great. Been a great partner,
You
great resource.
you you hit on a really really key point there that I do want to just take a minute to talk about, which was you shifted your mindset from asking for something to trying to provide something for them. And the school assist part of what we built at WrenchWay was meant for that. We want industry to go in and be able to start a conversation and really be there to help support the program, because that's going to evolve into a relationship of some type. And all of these instructors would really, I think, always, they want to have these relationships, but in a lot of ways they have a lot of people tugging at their shirts, right, to go their direction. And if you're going in with that approach of how can I help, what can I do to help you, and it's still, at some level it can be discouraging, because we'll see the conversations between the shops and the schools on the backside, and you still have a number of shops that are reaching out and saying, "Hey, I need to hire a person, and I would like to talk to your students, or I would like you to send me a student," essentially. And I think, in just my conversations with the instructors, there's nothing more frustrating than that, right? There's nothing more frustrating than a
Yep.
shop asking for a student when they've done absolutely nothing with the program. And yet we still, as an industry, struggle to get our hands around that. And we built this side of the platform strictly for that conversation. And to see some of those conversations happening still, you're just like, oh my goodness, you're still missing the point. Be able to start a conversation so that you're building a relationship. That relationship is going to serve you very well for the long haul if you actually put some time in and put some effort into helping them out.
Yeah, you have to. I think you have to start the conversation early on and develop that relationship before you start even asking for anything. And I'll be honest, I have, in my almost 9 years of doing this, you can talk to any instructor that I have a relationship with and have recruited at their school and their program, and I don't have any email to extra conversation. And they'll say the same thing where I'm like, "Hey, I need two students from your program. Can you give me your best students? Can you give me some of your best students?" I may send them an email saying, "Hey, we're looking for an outside parts sales exec. Do you know any of your graduates that are looking for an outside parts sales?" But they know when I go in and I present, like, I do my thing. And then if students are interested, they've got all my contact information and all my handouts. It's not me saying, "Hey, I'm an employer. Like, I'm on your advisory council. I come in to recruit. I've donated an engine. I need two people. I need two of your best." No, that's not how this works. There's so many options out there. You can't say, like, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Program Manager, Department Head, give me your best." why would they do that? Like they can't keep up with the demand. Like that's wrong. First of all, it's rude, it's disrespectful, and they don't have a say. They can say, "Hey Jane, hey Johnny, you go to JX." The students have they get to pick, for internships. They kind of tell them what they're looking for, what industry. And a lot of these schools now on the diesel side are going ag. They're mainly ag based. And also, I think you touched on this earlier. The more schools I'm going in, and this just happened recently, the more students are sponsored. The employers are going to the high schools, like identifying good talent and sending them to the local community college and paying for their education. They sign a maybe 3-year contract. So I'm going to schools, there's not 20 or 30 or 40 free agents. Like I was in a school yesterday in Central Illinois. There was, out of the 21 students there, half of them, about 11, were already spoken for. That same school a year and a half ago, when they were trying to place their students in internships, out of the 19 students they had in that program that were beginning their sophomore year, 3 or 4 of them needed placement. So even going to the schools anymore, it'll get to a point where it's too late. I think, Jay, in the next 3, 5, 6 years, we'll see where the shift is going to go from recruiting heavily in the community colleges down to the high school level, and then identifying the high school talent and then sending them to the community college or technical school. Like the technical schools might be a little different because they're a little bit more money, but I think in the community college recruiting, you're going to be too late if that's your first time talking to those students.
I think we're already there. And amen to you for saying that. I feel like I've been screaming that from a mountaintop for the last 10 years. And I think, again, just with my relationships with instructors, there's few things most of them dislike more than recruiting students to their programs, right? So if you can be the resource that helps them fill their program up so they don't have to go take time away from the classroom to go recruit in high schools at a career fair they don't necessarily want to be at. And if you can be that pipeline from the high school program to the tech school program, you're going to be looked at in a different light. And to me, it's been so blindingly obvious for so long, yet so many miss that point. And I think in all reality, that's when the system will work its best, is if we get industry supplying these community colleges with students so that they don't have to go out and fight for these students. Like that's really healthy. That is something where I think we as an industry can have such a positive impact. And it takes having relationships with those instructors so you actually know what the program is. And it takes being involved with your high schools to be able to go out to those career fairs that, let's face it, the instructors don't have time to go out to all of the communities around their area. A lot of times the recruiters at the schools have no idea what they're talking about as it relates to the automotive and diesel worlds.
Yep.
And so like if we as an industry can get behind these instructors, head out to the high schools on their behalf, get them into a school, get them into their program, then they're not focused on going out and trying to fill their classrooms. We can fill them for them. And then they're focused on curriculum and building a great program. Like to me, that's the healthiest way for us to attack this.
Wow, where do I even start? Like that is such a great topic that you brought up. And again, it goes back to serving people and serving the instructors. This isn't a hard and fast rule or anything, but sometimes the instructors can be, I don't want to say a gatekeeper, but they can influence where students go to work.
Yeah.
And I think that the more you can serve the instructors in the program and be like an unpaid recruiter, a consultant, going to the high schools, the better off that's going to be for everybody. Because again, and this is a long-term game, right? This is a marathon, not a sprint. So for us, if we go to the high schools and recruit talents and talk to them about the local community college and how great it is, and we might not see them for 2, 3, 4 years. We're building the pipeline, and we have to be constantly building the pipeline, whether it's during COVID, whether the economy and the market's good, the economy and the market's bad, we're hiring, we're not hiring. We always need to be out building the pipeline, getting in front of students, building our brand, building those relationships, talking about opportunities for all the reasons. And so the more you can do for the instructors, again, hey, you help me build this program. You helped me get students in here. You're the reason why this program, or you're one of the reasons why this program is successful. You're the reason why I still have a job. So yeah, you can come in, you can do what you want. And yeah, student, where do you want to go? Oh, you want to go in the diesel industry? Hey, have you considered JX? Like, they're a great company. Again, it's relationships, all about relationships.
That's a good way to end this. We knew that our hour would go really, really fast, and it did. And I feel like there's so many different things that we weren't able to touch on. So we'll definitely have to have you back on again here at some point in the near future. But man, what a pleasure to talk with you and pick your brain on something that you've been boots on the ground with for a while. And I think there's so much to take out of this episode and so many learnings that, not only just recruiters can take from, but I think anybody in our industry can build off of. So I appreciate you taking the time to out of your really, really busy schedule to join us. And honestly, I learned so much during this podcast. So I really, really appreciate it.
The pleasure is all mine, and I sincerely mean that. I have so much respect for you, and I'm just honored to actually be on one of your podcasts. Finally, I've been waiting for this moment for so long. I'm gonna call my wife after this, and she's gonna be like, "Okay, I get it. You're excited, but anytime you need me back, I'm not here. I don't have secrets. Like, I, there's no secret sauce. Like, it's pretty simple what I do. It's not easy, but it's simple. And so anybody listen to this, I mean, for me, the success that I've had is literally work hard, communicate with people, be open, honest, transparent, and a little sarcasm and humor, and asking questions to get to know people and building relationships. That goes a long way. So anytime you're looking for someone, I'd be more than happy to do another podcast, Jay.
Well, I appreciate you, my friend. Appreciate everything you're doing out there, and look forward to that next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.